Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is all about a particular photo that's been circulating in social media of late and also on the internet and on the news. It was a photo that was sent to me today, and I actually thought I'd kind of jump on it soon-ish, if you can call it that. And it was actually a photo that was taken in the UK. So we'll go into a bit more of the detail about the whole photo and how it sort of came about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick the camera around. Hi Tina, sweetie, how are you? Hey Damo. And then we're going to have a look at it properly. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight about it as well. Again, I'm going to be looking at your comments, so whatever comments you've got about this particular photo, let me know. Again, we always try and look at this as balanced as possible. Hi Ross, beautiful. Hey Kat. So again, we'll have a look at it, let me know your comments as we're going through this particular video as well. And also for those who are watching the replay, still use the comments section down below as well, whether you're watching this on YouTube or also on Facebook as well. So now I'm going to turn it around and see, I can actually see the photo. All right, so we've got this really interesting photo here. Of course, he hasn't got a hula hoop there. That's actually been put in later. But what I might do is actually scroll to, this is the actual news article that I found the most information about it. And we'll go into it soon. And of course, I'll go into those photos soon. But that gives you a bit of an idea. So that's the photo in question. It was taken on May Day long weekend in the UK, which is a popular weekend. I think there's two from memory when I lived there. And it was taken by a lady called Laura, and being a mum, and she's got her two kids there, and she's there with her niece and nephew and her parents as well. And it was taken in a place called Plessy Woods County Park in Northumberland with her family. And so the first thing I did while looking at this, of course, I always encourage it when you see stuff like this, is read the news article, get your context, get your background on it. Also keep in mind that this or these types of photos will, when it comes to news articles, it will be somewhat sensationalized. So obviously they're going to want readership. They're going to want to make it look like a ghost picture of some sort and stuff like that. So they're going to write these articles in a way that's going to make it seem way more interesting than probably what it actually is. But I have to admit, it's probably one of the most intriguing photos I've come across in recent years. Just the way the composition is and how it sits, but we'll talk about that soon. So first thing I did, of course, was absolutely trawl through the actual article itself, as you can see there. Excuse me for a moment. And I actually got a bit of background, so I'll give you a bit of background so you don't have to trawl through it. But what it was she was there with her two children, her a niece and nephew, and her parents. And so all in all, there was 7 people in the actual location at the time. Now, it's in the woods in the UK. There's a photo further up here that I thought was really good, which you often don't get to see, is actually the photos beforehand. So that's what it looked like. So they're obviously, they're walking through. It's a lovely day. They're all climbing all over this particular tree and wanting to have photos and, kids in trees and stuff. It's just so awesome. So they're all doing that. There was also, as you can see, there's a dog here as well. So there was a dog also present. I also think that's pretty interesting too, just to keep in mind. But apparently in her retelling of the story, she said dogs. So it's in plural. So there's obviously must be 2 that were actually there at the time. So she claims that no one else was in the area with them at the time. So that's the first thing. There was just the 7 of them that were climbing around, came across this tree, and by her kids and her nephew wanting to do that, she's like, well, get the camera out. There's a photo up here, it gives you a bit of context about where everyone was situated at the time of the photo, which I think, again, is really important. So it gives you an idea of the level as well. So as you can tell, where her son actually is in sort of alignment to where the actual anomaly is too. So it kind of goes, to me, it gives more credence as the possibility that it could actually have been a person as opposed to something being photoshopped, because somebody could actually have been there at the time. Now, one of her arguments is the fact that he has, there is a hand on her son's shoulder. Again, we can't really confirm that. It looks like there's a hand nearby, but whether or not it's there with her son, we don't know. But she claims that that's obviously something I'll talk a bit about later on. So no one was with them at the time. Originally, the mother said that she's quite skeptical as a person. which I thought was interesting, because after this particular photo was then discovered on her phone when she got back, she says now that she can't actually sleep properly, and she's terrified that whatever she found in the forest that day will actually follow her home. So I don't know about you guys, but I have yet to find a hardcore skeptic that will be convinced by one photo and then have trouble sleeping. So I'm kind of like, I'm in two minds of it. So anyway, that's one thing to think about and to take into consideration. It's a complete 180. But again, these articles do get written in a way that sensationalizes. Like, I was completely convinced instead of maybe this could be interesting. So it's that kind of stuff. Another thing I found quite interesting after being such a skeptic in this particular, her being such a skeptic about this before this photo was taken, and being scared, she actually wants to go back to the location again and find out what was there, or see if she can make contact with it. So again, I don't think someone's truly skeptic if that's what happens once they take a photo, if they truly are. But of course, as we know, trust me, I know true skeptics and they wouldn't turn on a dime. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's analyze this particular photo without its hula hoop ring. Hang on a second, let's find it further down here. Okay, now we're good. So firstly, the fact that there's a picture of other children there. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. We haven't got everybody even in these two photos as well. So we've got a couple of the children there, but there's not everybody there. There's actually a niece that is missing from these photos of the kids, which to me indicates the possibility that she may have just snuck around and actually gone in and behind while this photo was taken. That's my first initial thought. Secondly, they claim that no one was there at the time and they were completely on their own. They may have well have been, but I'm thinking because it's really difficult to ascertain where everybody was at the time, because you're not taking photos, making sure everybody's in the photo or not in the photo. You're in the moment. You're not going to be observing who's going to be behind, who's going to be here and there. You're going to be relaxed. You're going to take photos regardless. But she says, no one was there at the time. They were completely on their own. Rightly so, but maybe someone else turned up and managed to walk behind. Now, the reason why I say that is because sorry, you're probably getting really bad head spins from me screening up and down, but I'll just find the photo where it gives you, so you can tell there's a pathway. So there is at least some clear pathway there. It's not like a bushland where, you can suddenly pounce on somebody. So a couple of things to think about. She says they're on their own. Maybe someone could have come up from behind the tree. Maybe I'm not really sure that would be the case, but something to keep in mind. Katz has agreed, and how many folks will state skepticism as a line of defense and to buy credibility. Exactly, that's exactly it. I was a mad hardcore skeptic, but suddenly now I'm a believer. It makes a great story. And of course, some people say she's actually admitted that a lot of people say that this photo that I'll just bring it up here, it has been photoshopped. Now, that's the first thing a lot of us think, especially as investigators. Like, oh, come on here. Like, what's going down? That looks too good to be true, if that is the case. The first thing to think about is the shading and the lighting. And I know that Andrew had mentioned that when I posted this, about the fact that there is light, there is sunlight falling upon the particular apparition, I guess you want to loosely call it, to get a better perspective on where light was actually shining at that time is actually up here. So as you can see, there is sunlight coming through, and there's also sunlight on that tree just here. So in order for that would explain why there would be sunlight behind the actual whatever it is, and also on the top of the head there as well. So that could be, that could actually, to me, indicate there was something physically there at the time. Now, some people would look at it and just go, well, that person looks really, if it was a person, looks really unwell. But then, of course, in the same photo, all you need to do is have a look at her daughter. It's a very, very similar makeup within bone structure, colouring as well. She, if you were to just literally sort of cut away this particular part of it, you would almost say the same thing. It's a similar style of person there as well, which again leads me to believe that there is more than likely something that was physically there at the time as opposed to being photoshopped. If it was photoshopped, it's a really good Photoshop. Somebody would be quite advanced in that. I can't see any inconsistencies with the blurring here, because you look all around the shapes around here, all around here. It's all consistent with the same pixelation as it is with everything else. So for me, initially looking at this, and it gives me the indication it may not have been photoshopped, but again, I still think the jury's still out. At the moment, I'm thinking something was physically there because the shading and the lighting matches with that as well. Yeah, it's exactly, that's right, Kat. So it looks very solid. It looks too solid. And that's the ironic thing about it, is a lot of the times, you know, when we come across photos or when we come across people's experiences, they'll turn around and say, oh, you know, it was just, I was talking to something and then it turned around and disappeared. It was, you know, but it was like talking to a physical person. So there's also something to keep in mind. Apparitions don't glow in the dark. This is in daylight. And most of the time, if anything was to ever come through from reports I've had over the years or dealt with, it's like the person's physically there, but they just vanish, and there's no way that other person can actually determine whether or not, you know, how quickly that person would disappear. So that's also something to keep in mind too. Of course, the hula hoop. So we'll go back down here, just in case you didn't see it. Those pictures, by the way, that's the mother, and that's her daughter, and now, of course, that's her son there as well. So that's interesting with her daughter there. But I just want to see what the niece looks like, because that's my thoughts. Anyway, so there's that as well. Again, she claims no one was there at the time. She doesn't know how to use Photoshop. She said people have all told her, a lot of people have said, it's Photoshop. You've used it, you've put it in. She said, I have no idea how to use this. I'm a medical receptionist person. I'm very, very bad tech-wise. You know, I wouldn't know how to use it. And apparently had taken the photo and then gone home and actually seen it properly and just gone, well, who was that at the time? She says another interesting point that she mentions is that she goes, if it was another child actually there, then her son would have noticed it. And also, she claims that it had its hand on his shoulder. I don't necessarily think that could be the case. Reason being is having a look at the tree formation. If you're climbing a tree behind somebody, hypothetically, right? We're just saying hypothetically. So if it was an actual person, you can see that it's actually quite thin there. So you'd be wanting to grab onto something in that particular area right there. So I think that's totally something that I don't think that whatever it was grabbing on anyone's shoulder. I just think it was actually trying to grab onto something further along, but it was actually the way in which the hand looked at the time of the photo looked like it was actually going to grab him on the shoulder. And she's right in the sense where if it was a physical person and they were there and they were trying to grab, you know, him on the shoulder, then he would know about it. And she also says if she had seen the fact that there was, you know, somebody there behind her son while she was taking a photo, then she wouldn't do it if it was a stranger. It's like, well, that's a bit creepy, more creepy than the fact it could be an apparition. So she makes a good point with that as well. But then again, she analysed the photo after it had been taken when she got home. So that's another thing also to keep in mind. I believe it's the lady laying on the tree trunk. I think so too, Dee. I honestly think it's somebody that was physically there because the lighting and the shading, just for my initial analysis. I could be wrong again. You know, if I'm wrong and it has been photoshopped, then I'll definitely say so. Pedophile, yes, well, it's definitely not. But you know, that's what I might initially see at the time with this. This son, he said on his right between his cheek and his apparition, looks very odd. Yeah, see, that's right. It's I mean, obviously there's the hairstyle of the child there as well. That's obviously sort of masking somewhat, but it's the look, isn't it? It's the look that kind of gives you that impression. But yeah, it's that, you know, the right part sort of thing. It just seems a bit strange. Plus, there's almost an outline around the top part of its head. Yeah, around. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's almost like I think it's better when it's a bit further out because if it looks a bit pixelated from there. So I'll have a look here at there. So that gives us a better look. So it does look a bit strange, but it could just be sunlight. We don't know. It's an interesting Photoshop if it is, but again, I think just from the lighting, I'm thinking whatever was physically there was physically there. And again, the colour of the face coincides with her family's coloration as well with that. So yeah, she said, you know, obviously, you know, if it was somebody behind her son, then they would notice. Again, a lot of people say it looks like a girl. She thinks it looks like a boy. Obviously, then all the stories of the area start to pop up with the fact there was a story of a boy that was drowned nearby and they think it could be him and all this kind of stuff. So again, you know, take it with a grain of salt, but don't take it as sort of, you know, the full-on truth in that regard. It could all be hearsay. There was no facts to back that up at all. So again, my personal initial analysis, I think it is actually one of her niece or nephews. Well, I should say niece. I think it's her niece. Her niece creeped around behind at the time. That's why I don't think she was alarmed about taking the photo and was very chilled. I don't think the fact it was an apparition at all. The fact that, you know, obviously she's saying she was very skeptical beforehand and now is a complete believer and wants to go back, but doesn't want anything to, you know, follow her home or anything like that. Oh, hello, Karen. Good to see you, lovely. So yeah, that's my initial thing. I think someone was physically there. I don't think it was an apparition. If it was photoshopped, I think it's a very good job of Photoshop to be able to pull that off. But like you said, Kat, there are certain slight inconsistencies. But geez, the pixelation, the way they've done it, even if this is being blown up, it's consistent with the rest of it. Normally, you would find inconsistencies where it would be too smoothed out. And for someone who says that she's very, I mean, we're taking their word for it, of course, that she's very much, you know, very untech worthy, and it couldn't possibly be, you know, her in any way, shape or form. It's good to keep that in mind as well. So that's my initial thoughts on it. Love to know your thoughts on it as well. Again, if you want to look at it a bit more, go to the actual story itself. That's the link up there as well. It's dailymail.co. Mother 2 sleeps capturing chilling photo, ghost child, Northumberland. Remember all that. So go and have and check it out. I'm sure if you do, it's only been in the news recently, so if you go into Google, you check it, you type into news, mother's scared to sleep from ghost photo, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And have a look for yourself, read all the other different stories, different interviews that have been given, and make up your own mind. I hope that you liked that and got a bit of an insight to that as well. Again, use the comment section. Love to know what you think. And thank you so much for watching. And for next week, do take care.